Welcome back to Blacksheep Barbell Podcast. On today's episode, we have Beth Elton. Beth currently is a therapist who specializes in speaking with combat veterans and veterans. She's also said that she works with some civilians. Beth's primary mission is to help veterans that are struggling with civilian life get back up to par, help them realize their sense of purpose again, and realize that what they're going through is normal.
Yeah, she also has a fairly successful TikTok account that she spreads a lot of positivity. It's fairly rare to find that even on any social media. So to even do that, it can just make someone's day.
Yeah, it's unique.
Yeah. So Beth, welcome to the show.
I don't know if Ethan expressed it to you. Primarily, we're a fitness-focused podcast, but we do talk a lot about, mental health and how much, the gym has helped us in those regards and many other people. And me being a veteran myself, I love the work that you do.
Thanks.
Just kind of giving that help and assistance to veterans. I think it's awesome. I think it's needed. So definitely it's something I'd like to talk about and just kind of pick your brain a little bit.
Absolutely. Any questions? I'd love them. I actually, I think you guys have seen the variety joke, and I'm like professional yapper. Like I can talk all day.
Perfect.
That's like
That
my
works for
go-to.
us.
It's fine.
So what got you started in this work?
Totally accidental, actually. So I have a lot of trauma and abuse in my childhood and all my teenage years, pretty much all my life. And then my grandma died of cancer the day after my 16th birthday. So I wanted to go to school and cure cancer. And my mom was like, hey, that's a lot of death. You should take a psychology class. That's all it took. I took one class. It was abnormal psychology, went straight into it, and got all three of my degrees. And then I was working and I was convinced I was going to work with kids. Like I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this is my calling. I love it. And then COVID hit and I absolutely hated it. And I was like, I never want to work with kids again.
Yeah.
Like in California, there's no regulation. So when COVID hit, it was like trying to keep a 5-year-old on a phone call, like not even a camera or anything like
Oh,
that.
wow.
It was like pulling teeth. And I was like, it just kind of killed me wanting to work with kids.
Yeah.
And then I started working with teens, and I loved working with teens. I didn't like their parents too much. Was not my calling either. And I started to like kind of hate my job, and I loved my job. And I was like, nope, this isn't for me. So then I started working with women with trauma, and I loved that. But then I wanted to get more hours, and I saw a job posting, and it was like, okay, I'll just apply. And I loved my supervisor. I think it's hilarious because her name is Liberty. And it just like aligned so well.
Yeah.
And so she ended up asking me, like, are you patriotic? And I was like, not particularly. And she was like, did I not tell you what group I work with? And I was like, no. And she was like, it's usually combat veterans. And I was like, oh, okay. And she was like, do you want to try it? And I was like, absolutely. Like, I don't know much, but like, I'd be willing to do that. And then I worked with her for a whole year, and then I had to pick a practice because it kind of gets heavy on like who you kind of want to find your niche around like the 4-year point. And I could not imagine like having my vets have to restart and like re-solidify that trust process and like the respect process and like being able to do, especially men. And so I was like, women, I feel like it's a little bit easier for them emotionally to be able to do that and be vulnerable. But my vets, like, absolutely not. I couldn't bear that. So I ended up picking that practice. And since then, it's been like 2 years. And that's how I
Nice.
ended up working with vets.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I know veterans, myself included. I'm a combat vet myself. I had a deployment to Afghanistan in 2018 when I was 18 years old. So, my whole military career, 4 years, I was super young, got out when I was 21. And even now, some of the older vets, some of the guys from the Vietnam era, just talking with them, I mean, there's just like this unspoken of connection, right? Like just that connection that we have with one another, despite the age difference.
Yeah,
It's like we all get each other, and then everybody's got such a crazy story,
it is. Every
and
single one of you do. And they all kind of align in very similar ways, though, in patterns, if you like take a step back and look at it.
yeah, that's something I wanted to talk about too, is I'm sure with everybody's story being so different, you still kind of find those similarities in things, right? Kind of like the base of what they're going through.
Yeah. I think if there was like the biggest issue, it would be adjustment to city life
Yeah.
being so difficult, no matter what branch, what age, if you were combat, if you're just a veteran, just in general, the adjustment is so difficult for everybody across the board. I've yet to come across a veteran where that's not like primarily the main issue where I'm like, oh, it's a huge isolation piece.
Yeah, I agree. And it's the thing is because when you're in, you have that structure. you have that structure and you're surrounded by people that are going through the same thing as you every day. So
Mhm.
it's like you guys communicate about the challenges from work and training or a deployment. And then once you remove yourself from that environment and you're a civilian again, and mind you, I get it. People aren't going to really, know how to respond or react to that. I don't expect civilians to, right? They don't have the same experience. But it's like once you get out, you're like, nobody really knows like what I went through. And I don't really have anybody to relate to besides those guys I'm away from now. And so it does get a little difficult.
Yeah, it's a big isolation process too, right? And it's interesting because even though you guys, like I had a vet explain it as it's the home that he never wants to revisit, but he'll always miss.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like that's the best way he could explain it to me. And you guys get out and then you kind of isolate for a while and it
Yeah.
goes downhill really fast, is what I see, unless there's like a direct person who's helping you. So like, and I know it actually can be effective if they gave you guys like the awareness of how difficult civvy life is going to be and how different and how drastically you're going to have to find a purpose and a meaning, right? All of these things, they don't prep you for it. And I know firsthand that they could do a better job because one of my best friends now, he got out maybe 7 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so he and I became friends from TikTok while he was active duty. And then I kept telling him, like, hey, I know you're so excited to get out, but what's your plan for when you get out? And he was like, oh, Beth, like, I'm so stoked. Like, I don't care. Like, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know, like, I'm so with you, but I just want you to be aware. So, like, while you're still good, like, what's your plan? He's like, okay, like, I'll keep up working out. Like, I'll make sure I do jujitsu. Like, I'll look for something, like work wise, that'll keep me busy. And I was like, fantastic. So we kind of like, just as a friend, created a plan for him. He got out and he was like, this is amazing. He's like texting me when he leaves post, right? And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
this is great. And I would say about like 6 weeks later, he texted me and he was like, SOS. And immediately I was like, what is it? And he's like, I don't know my purpose. Like, I don't know who I am. Like, I am so lost. And immediately I was like, okay, what did we go back to? Like, what did you and I talk about? And I was like, are you working on? He was like, no. And I'm like, I need you to go to the gym today. I need you to go to like Virgilia, like he's in jujitsu. So I was like, hey, do MMA classes or whatever it is. Like, I need you to start doing those every single day. You need dopamine. And within like a week or two, he was like, okay, like I'm good again. But like he had the advantage of me prepping him and knowing and telling him in advance and like talking to him about it. You guys don't usually get that like ever. I've never
Yeah.
heard that.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of veterans too kind of have this feeling where they don't like reaching out, right? I mean, it's like you've already did something so challenging, so it's like, oh, I'm this combat veteran. Like, who am I to try to reach out and get some help? It's kind of that pride factor,
It is.
And I can say myself that the gym has definitely 100% helped me and keep me occupied and helped me with that dopamine. But
Mm-hmm.
but I get it, it's frustrating because it's like when you're talking about your identity and your purpose. Like for me, it's like when I was in the Army, I was a gunner, assistant gunner on a mortar system, and I had this job, and I had the guys around me. And coming back from a deployment is like I knew my mission, I had a purpose, and then you get out, and you're like, now I'm me, I'm just a civilian. Like I'm not tied to these things anymore.
Yeah.
And I felt it a lot when I went to college. So being young, I was 22,
Mm-hmm.
went to college, and having that military experience and being surrounded by essentially kids, it was a struggle. Like, how do I relate to these people? What do I talk to them about?
Yeah, 100%, right? And you guys, especially because you speak a different language.
Yeah.
Like, I was joking, I was like, veteran language compared to civvy language is totally different. Like, the dark humor, oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, off-putting immediately to anybody who's a civvy. And like, it does not go over well, like, almost always, right? Like, my veterans can joke and I don't think anything of it now. I usually laugh if I'm totally honest with you. Like, my
Yeah.
humor has changed because of it, but like, I have the exposure to that. Most people don't. And it's interesting you said pride because I immediately was like, I don't think it's pride. Like it is, but
Mm.
it's not. I think it's like a fear of you guys wondering if you're failing because the military teaches you like you're not allowed to fail. That's not an option. Like
Yeah.
there's no such thing, right? And so then you guys get out and having to ask for help means did I fail? Does this mean I failed? And so I'm
Yeah.
like, I almost don't think it's pride. I think it's like a fear of failure most of the time.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that
Yeah.
because it's like you hear everything that veterans go through and, obviously the 22 a day and PTSD. And it's like once you start feeling a certain way, I guess you kind of take a step back, like, oh no, like I didn't think this could happen to me. And that's one of the things with like mental health and things is we hear about it happening to other people. And then once we start feeling it, we're like, oh, this, because in the back of our mind, sometimes we're like that couldn't be me, right? It's never you until it happens to you,
Absolutely.
and then you start feeling that way and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do with myself now.
Yeah, it's also a chemical imbalance. So it's not just like it's a fear of failure, but like from like a psychology, like body standpoint, right? Your bodies are totally different now. So when you went
Mm,
into the military, typically your brain's not even developed. Like the brain doesn't even finish developing until around 25. So if you
yeah.
went in at 18, you don't even have your identity formed. Your brain's not even developed, and then they
Yeah.
kind of they trauma bond you guys to each other. If we're totally honest about it, I know what happens in basic and boot camp, right? Most
Yeah.
cities don't have that awareness. I do. And then on top of that, like trauma bond, then your guys' bodies are addicted to cortisol and it's addicted to chaos and dopamine seeking behavior and adrenaline, right? Because you
Yeah.
guys are living this high all the time. You're in a constant state of fight or flight. Your body's become like used to that and that's like an addiction process. So then you don't even know how to get out of that. So like the gym is a good one, right? And that's why like combat sports, so like jujitsu is really good. I ask a lot of my vets, are you going to the range? Like, is that a PTSD thing? And they're like, no, I'm not going. They go and they're like, oh my God, I needed that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of like aspects to it too. It's like, it's not even pride. It's like a mixture of failure along with like your body is totally different. And the chemicals your brain needs aren't going to be able to sustain that. And then when you get into that negative mindset and you don't have dopamine, that's when those thoughts come in. That's when that heaviness starts to reside, that negativity. And you guys just kind of like ruminate in it. It just stays in your
Yeah.
mind over and over and over.
Right. So yeah, so it's basically, like finding things like, we won't ever really be able to replicate our experience while we're in, but it's finding things that still give you those same feelings that kind of put you in that position that you once were somewhat, right? Just to kind of release those feelings and kind of get that adrenaline spike again. Cause yeah, that's definitely true. Just
Mhm.
being in that trauma bonding state and just constantly, I mean, being up all hours of the night, going through challenging things, and then to realize one day you get out and that's all gone. And now
Yeah.
you're stagnant. And then, I couldn't imagine if you didn't do anything, not going to the gym, not going to the range, and you're just, I mean, living life like just 9 to 5 job, not doing anything. I mean, yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, a purpose is really important. So, like I like to tell my clients, like, what is your purpose? What is your meaning? Like, what is giving you like some sort of a dopamine, right? Because you're not going to have that anymore. And then that bond, I wish that I could say you guys replicate it after, but you kind of don't. I've
Mm,
never heard of it in any of my veterans. I have a friend who's 27 or he's 30 active duty. He joined when he was 27.
mm,
He's totally different. His brain was developed, like the way he processes things. Like I love to like ask him questions and be like, "Hey," and he gives me a different insight, right? But he was so like joined the military at such an older age that like he's already solidified his identity. Versus
yeah.
when you're young, that is your identity. And when you get out, it's kind of like a helplessness of like, what am I supposed to do? What's my structure? Like, how do I replicate this? And nobody teaches you anything. The VA
Yeah.
doesn't really. Is it TEPS? Is that the classes when you guys get out?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't.
Yeah.
I've heard about them and I was like, that's not prepping you for the real world, like back to
Yeah.
civilian life at all. Like there's no way.
Yeah, it's something too that people they're so excited to get out that I mean we just fly through that and skim through it. Unfortunately, a lot of like the resources they provide us when we're getting out of how to like cope and adjust when you get out. If
Yeah.
you're ETSing, people are so excited to get out that they don't even. It's in one ear and out the other. They're like, I just want to go home.
Yeah, it totally like I get it, right? It totally makes sense. I joke and
Yeah,
I was like, maybe I should make a video for them and then just put my face up on a wall and be like, hey, these are some things that are gonna happen. They're like, I probably listen to you more than I would listen to them. And I thought it was hilarious.
yeah. It is interesting too, talking about how kind of that difference between when you go in and you're more solidified in your identity because you're older with being younger. It's like, when I went to basic, when I signed up, I needed my parents to sign me off. I was 17, turned 18 in basic, deployed at 18, and then got out 21. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting out after all this experience. And when I get home, I can have my first legal drink. Like being that young. And
Wild. It's so
it's
wild.
crazy.
Absolutely. That's like crazy to think about, right? And then combat especially, like and
Yeah.
then you come back and you're 22, but the 22-year-old civvies are not like you. You're built different is what I say.
Right.
Veterans are built different.
Yeah.
You guys aren't going to relate the same. You're not going to communicate the same. You guys have life experiences that made you grow up really fast. Not to say like
Mm,
cities don't, but it's a totally drastic different like society that you guys live in specifically.
So, what has been like the most rewarding thing with veterans and working with them, would you say?
I think gaining their trust, as interesting as that sounds,
Yeah.
very guarded. Um,
Hmm.
don't really want to open up, right? So everything I learned in school didn't apply either. They teach you so much when you're going to school to be a therapist in your master's program. So like our class sizes are really small. It's like 6 students to like one professor. That way they can really teach you, right? Because you're learning skills like communicating and body language and how to like maintain eye contact, which is so uncomfortable. One of the most uncomfortable classes I had, we had to stand with one of our partners and
Hmm.
stare at each other for 5 minutes. Like she put on a
Oh my God.
talk about awkward. I've never feared like looking somebody in the eyes again.
Yeah.
So you learn all these skill sets. But when I started working with vets, nothing worked. Literally, none of
Hmm.
it worked. Where I was like, okay, like I'm talking to a wall. They don't want to tell me anything. Like they don't want to share anything. And like you're smart enough to know, like you can use your intuition, right? And be like, I think they're just telling me what they think I want them to tell me, right? Like,
Yeah.
and men in general are like that, but veterans, it's even more of like this guard up. So like gaining their trust has been like my favorite part of my job to like show them like, hey, there's safety here. You can trust me. We can talk about these things, especially like emotions. You
Mm.
guys don't have emotions. You have anger. Like that is what is drilled into you men across the board, right? Like not just veterans,
Yeah.
men, like society isn't teaching you how to communicate that. All you guys know is, oh, I'm allowed to be angry. You reside there. That's like where you're comfortable at. So like gaining trust has been probably my favorite part.
Nice.
Do a lot of veterans go in there and they just think like therapy doesn't work at all, so you have to try to win them over?
You know, it's like 50-50. I think half of them think that way, and the other half, I think that they were struggling so severely that this is like their last resort of like, okay, I'm going to swallow that pride, right? Which they think is pride. And I'm like, and they're like having that awareness, like, this is like it. Like, I don't know what to do outside of this. So it's like half of them come in with that guard, and then half of them are like, no, like, I really need the help. Like, this has to work.
Hmm.
Mm.
It's a sad thing too because I feel like with veterans they tend to reach out once it starts getting bad, right? They don't like to kind of take that initiative and take care of it on the early stages. It's when it starts getting bad and there's kind of no other hope, right? Like their back is against the wall and they're like, yeah, I think I need to talk to somebody. And another bad thing too is kind of that culture when you're in and you feel like you might need to talk to somebody, and I'll be the first one to tell you when you want to go to behavioral health, it's like, are you kidding me? Your peers and your leadership is like, are you serious? You're going to behavioral health? you
Uh,
know
the stigma behind it is so strong, so intense, and the shame, like, and that's what I mean by I don't even think it's pride. I think it's like a mixture of shame and like avoidance of being like, oh, I'd rather just suffer in silence, right? But then
Hmm.
I think of it, and I'm like, that's why it's 22 a day, and I'm pretty sure that's like a low end. I would
Yeah.
suspect is actually far higher than that. It's just not getting reported very often.
Hmm.
Knowing what I know. And so like somebody asked me the other day, who was it? They asked me if like it was easier for my female vets to open up than my male vets. And I was like, it's actually very similar. And they were like, what? I was like, at the point where I have a male veteran come in, they're at their low. Like they
Hmm.
literally are here because they're so aware that they need the help and they're willing to ask for help. So they open up like pretty much the same as like a female veteran that I have.
I know with BNN, it's kind of like that feeling where you want to be part of the team and you kind of want to show all your peers like, oh, I'm good, like my head's on straight, I'm there for you guys, I can do my job efficiently.
Yeah.
And it's like the second you bring up, hey, I might need to talk to somebody, or maybe something we went through kind of messed me up, you feel like you're like at the bottom of the totem pole now.
Hmm.
Now you're underneath everybody. Now you're like, I'm messed up, right? And you start to feel like detached
Yeah.
from that team, and you know that. I guess a lot of us will think like, oh, they're going to start talking about me. They think that I can't perform how I was just because I feel like I need to talk to somebody. It's unfortunate, but at least in my experience, that's kind of what I had heard from other people, and kind of how I viewed it myself.
Yeah. It's a very solidified mindset. Like, it's interesting because I think it's most men. It's not just veterans, but especially because like you guys are men surrounded by a lot of men. Like that's
Hmm.
the natural state of it. But in general, men see as like, oh, I need help is weak.
Yeah.
Like our society kind of drills into you guys like be a man, like stand up, like figure it out, like you can do this, right? And I'm like, no, you can. But imagine if you had support along the way, how much
Right.
easier would that be, right? Like And I use my son as an example because I have a 4-year-old and I take it very seriously. Like he's going to be a man in society for sure. Absolutely. But I'm also going to solidify like, hey, you can be upset about something. That's totally fine. Like that's okay. But you still need to get up and do it right. It can be two truths at the same time is my favorite thing to teach vets because it's so black and white. It's like, oh, it's this way or it has to be this way. And I'm like, why not both? Who said?
Yeah.
And nobody ever questions that, right? So like you can be a man in society and stand up, but you can also say, "Hey, I need help with this," and still be a man and stand up at the same time. It doesn't have to be one or the other. But nobody's ready for that conversation, right? Like
Hmm.
nobody wants to have that one yet.
Yeah. I think a big problem too is we care so much about what other people think. And when you look at it from the outside in, it's like, well, this is, I mean, you're talking about your own emotions, what you're feeling on the inside. So it's kind of funny when you think like, well, I'm feeling this way, but I don't want to get help because I'm afraid of what he's going to think
Hmm.
about me. But it's like at the end of it's like you're talking about yourself, like the help is for you. Right? So it's like
Yeah.
it's going to get you on that right path, but I mean that goes with society and everything. We're always so worried about what other people
Hmm.
think and how they view us, and it's a shame.
I just think it's so common too for all men to just hide their emotions. They don't want to show anything.
Yeah.
They just want to keep a straight face, like no
Yeah,
matter what it
yeah,
is.
yeah. Like I'm not bothered by it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
When in reality, you know that you're human. You're
Yeah.
gonna be affected by it.
I mean, and it's supposed to work that way. Like it's the same as women. It's just like we don't talk about it, right? Which is why I have a lot of hope for like the upcoming generation, like my son's generation, right? To be like, hey, there's more awareness, there's more ability to do that. But I think in a whole, like, yeah, men don't talk about feelings and they're not going to want to. And they don't even know. The craziest thing is most men don't even know what they're feeling.
Yeah,
You were angry about something like, hey, what's wrong? You're like, I'm pissed. And I'm like, why? You're like, well, this happened. I'm like, but are you really mad? And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, no, you're not. And my vets all are like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I'm not actually mad. And they're like,
yeah.
what? And then I realized there's no emotional awareness. Like, you guys can't even label what you are feeling. And then
Hmm.
I was like, okay, so these men don't even know what they're feeling. So 90% of the time, honestly, with veterans, it's grief.
Hmm.
Grief over the bonds that you guys had, grief over the things that happened when you were in combat, grief over people you couldn't save, grief over choices that you've made, grief over like relationships that didn't work out, right? Like a lot of men, it's the anger is covered up by grief because it's always
Hmm.
usually that. Maybe betrayal sometimes, right? But like a lot of it's grief.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know, and you know, unfortunately, with me being I've been out since 2021, so like 4 years now, and I still hear about guys that were in my unit that unfortunately have taken their lives. And I'll look back and think of them as a person, and I'm like, man, like you couldn't tell,
Yeah.
right? And that's a sad thing too, is you could never tell like that person was feeling that way or what they were going through because they always had a smile on their face, always joking, always there for the team. And then you hear about that, and then you're just like, oh my god. And then you start to think about some of the stuff that you went through, right? And some of the stuff you're feeling, and that's why I do think it's super important for vets to reach out because it's like when you see that happening to people you would have never thought, it's like, all right, I need to take some initiative here and get some help myself because, you don't want to go down that path too.
It's interesting because the biggest red flags to me and my veterans are when they're really happy.
Yeah.
I immediately am like, what is this? What's going on? What's happening? I can, it's like alarm bells go off in my head when I see men in general. When I see like a very like happy man who's like excited, but like if he's not actively in that role, my brain goes to like something's wrong. Like what's wrong? You're
Mm-hmm.
hiding something immediately, right? Like my gut instinct is like, hey, what's happening here? That one and isolation when they start pulling back. Like I tell people, like somebody asked me what's a sign for veterans to know they need to help their friend. I said, if your friend reaches out to you and is like, oh my God, like, do you remember this moment and this moment? And they're reminiscing and they're like kind of isolated for a while and they go into that, go and check on that friend. That's a warning
Yeah.
sign to you that they're going back into the past. Once they had pulled back already, they're reminiscing and they're like coming to conclusions, usually, like a lot of the time. And it's a red flag for me.
Mm-hmm. You think it's kind of because they're like struggling with like the present, and so they're just kind of trying to take themselves back
They're going
and
back to
thinking
people's
about, yeah.
marriage and safety and like good moments and memories, right? Because our brain will go back to these things of like, oh, that was safe. So your brain's going to go to safety. But when they've isolated for so long, like you haven't heard from them in a long time, and then they do that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm always like, that person's at risk. Like, go check on him. And it's like men across the board. Like, if you have a best friend from high school you haven't heard from in like 2 years and they reach out and like, hey, do you remember when we were kids and we do that? And I'm like, go check on that person
Mm,
right now. Something's not right. Like men don't do that, right? Like you
yeah.
guys don't go and become like very soft and like warm about things from the past. That's not your natural state. So it's a red flag to me where I'm like, I'm concerned now.
Even to this day, you know, I'll get text messages randomly from guys I was in with or a phone call out of the blue. And I'm always sure, like, hey, I got to answer this because I know, like you were saying, it's like it's out of the blue. Like, I haven't talked to them in months. So I'm like, I got to answer this. You know, I'm going to respond to them, see what's going on, make sure everything's well. And, you know, it's just like picking up where we left off. It's never like, oh, hey, it's been this long. It's like, hey, man, what's going on?
Yeah.
Haven't, it could be a year since I talked to him, but it's like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? You
Yeah.
know, like we just pick up where we left off from when we were in.
Well, you had asked me when we were like talking on Instagram the other day, and you're like, well, what are some things? And I kept going back to like 22 a day. And like my biggest thing about why I think 22 is so high, I think is the isolation. I think that
Mm-hmm.
you guys withdraw and then it like weighs really heavily, right? Because women go into like their friend groups. They'll go into like it's easy to go and get our support, right? Like
Yeah.
I have like four best friends who are all women, two guy best friends that are both vets at this point. I have a whole like circle of people around me when I'm having a hard day. I know who I'm going to. I know
Mm-hmm.
that if I need like very direct comfort, I'm going to Scott. If I need somebody who's going to give it to me like a hard ass way, I'm going to John, right? Like if I need like soothing, I'm going to go to Noemi. I know who my circle is. When veterans get out, you guys pull back and isolate. And then I think that's where the danger comes in because as much as you guys want to say like I don't want to be social or I'm tired, the military trained you to be social now at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You guys were forced to socialize every single day that you're in duty. You don't
Yep.
even get to say so to say no. So you guys can say
Yeah.
that. But I'm sitting here like, no, you guys are being social beings and you just don't want to accept it. And that's okay, right? But I make my veterans go and like socialize, reach out and be like, hey, go reach out to that person. Your
Mm-hmm.
brains actually kind of need it. That's dopamine too that you don't realize. So it's interesting because isolating, I think, is the biggest indicator to me of like the 22. I think if there was a way to fix that isolation process, it would fix a whole lot of things to give back that community that kind of gets broken when you guys get out.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It's one of those things too where it's like sometimes, yeah, I could say this myself is, you know, you get buddies that want to get together or something like that. And, you know, maybe a lot of people, we always get that initial, I don't really want to go. And then you go, and then it's like the best experience ever. And afterwards, like, oh, I'm so glad I went. Like,
100%, right? That's just like your brain wanting to like kind of self destruct a little bit. But once you do, it's like working out. None of us really
yeah,
want to work out, but once you do it, don't you feel so great afterwards? That's because the
yeah,
dopamine gets released,
Hmm.
right? So I call it opposite action. So when you have a plan, you want to do something and you don't want to do it, I make you go and do it. It's like I make my
yeah.
friends go socialize. They're like, I just want to see home today. I was like, oh, so you're going out tonight? And they're like, oh, fine, right? And then they're like,
You
I'm so glad I went, Beth. And I'm like, I know.
just got to give them that push. Like, hey, so you're going out? And I'm going to ask you again. So you're going out?
100%.
Fine. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you ever work with, I know you said primarily it's combat vets, but have you ever had the chance to work or maybe plan on
Sure.
working with first responders at all?
I wouldn't mind working with first responders. I think it's a very similar like dynamic.
Hmm.
I haven't worked with anybody, I don't think. I'm like going through my client list in my brain.
Yeah.
I don't think, well, one of them is a firefighter. So like he's a
Okay.
combat vet and a firefighter.
Gotcha.
But still a very similar mentality.
Hmm.
And then I work with mil spouses. So I have a couple of them who are like the wives of people who are combat vets, which is a completely different take of it, right?
Yeah.
Work with. And then the only teenager, because I don't really work with teenagers, her
Mm.
dad is a combat vet. And so that's an entirely different version of it too. But I wouldn't
Yeah.
be opposed to working with first responders also, actually.
Yeah. I know that with first responders and kind of that difference with veterans and just active duty military personnel is, you know, firefighters, police officers, everything is, they go through a lot of traumatic stuff consistently
Hmm.
on a day-to-day basis. And I know with military personnel and combat vets, it's kind of like a lot of those feelings will come from that deployment, right? That combat deployment when you're in a combat zone going through stuff. And you look at a lot of police officers today, firefighters, EMTs. I mean, they're call after call, traumatic stuff,
Yeah.
8 to 12 hours a day, every day. And, you know, to kind of go through a traumatic call and then, you know, you kind of get that adrenaline dump because now that call's over, and then now you go to another high priority call. So it's just, I mean, you're just a wave of up and down, up and down. So like I give those guys a lot of credit too, and obviously feel like a lot of them would reach out more.
Yeah. So I dated a Marine who was a cop,
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't date him again. We'll just say that. I joke and I'm like, I was so fresh into working with vets though. Like now knowing what I know, seeing 0311 on his forearm, I should have been like, this is gonna be too much. But he was so funny, like hilarious. But he would be on a call sometimes with me and I could just hear it. And then I would see him and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he'd be like, I can't, and he wouldn't even be able to talk sometimes. And I'd be like, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
hear you. And then I remember one of the first times, so minimizing, he was wearing his bracelet. And I go, what's that bracelet? I kind of knew. And he goes, oh, it's just a bracelet. I was like, okay. And immediately I was like, oh, the guard is up. And then he looked up and he goes, wait. It was like, yeah. He's like, I can talk to you about this. And I was like, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
And you could see like the relief on his body, right? And he started to just talk and he's like kind of reminiscing, like he's like, I'm an open book. And I'm like, tell me about him. And he was like, okay. So he started talking and you could just see his shoulders kind of relax. And I thought it was really interesting because I wonder how many men actually are able to do that, to decompress situations, to just relax when they get home, to have a space to do it. A lot of my veterans will not talk to their wives about what they've been through. And a lot of my female veterans will talk to their husbands, but that's because almost all of their husbands are combat veterans too, to really
Oh, so they get it.
yeah, they all
Yeah.
marry back into like veterans. But the men won't tell their wives because they worry about burdening them. They don't want them to carry the stuff that they carry. They worry that it's going to be too heavy, right? So, like I like to say, so, like civvies are in like this bubble, and men don't want to pop that innocence of being like, "Hey, you're in this very safe space." They don't want to share it, and then they just kind of keep it in, and then they don't ask for help, and it kind of spirals from there.
Working with veterans and everything, has that changed like your outlook on like your own life or own mental health?
It's healed my mental health a lot, if I'm honest, which is not what I think most people would expect me to say because you would think it'd be really heavy. But like a client of mine who had extensive trauma, one of my first women clients with trauma, she and I created what we call Black Box. And so
Mm.
essentially, it's like a figurative box that she and I created like in our mind, and you can like describe it and imagine it. And every time I hear something traumatic, I'll put it into that box and then I'll kind of lock the lid and I don't pull it back out. So, like, I hear heavy things, but I make sure I don't access it. But if anything, working with vets has healed me because of the trauma that I have. I'm very afraid of men. Like, I was like, I don't ever want to work with men. Like, I never, ever thought I was going to do this.
Mm.
Even working with kids, like when I would have to talk to their dads, I'd be like, mom's not home. And I would get really concerned, right? I had a very healthy reason to be afraid of men from my trauma. And my veterans healed that most of the way without them being aware of it. It's created like this softness and this kindness of like, not everybody is the same, right? We just kind of apply these labels. So if anything, it kind of helped my mental health without ever being aware of it. Of like now I have like safety and security. I know like these men and like the examples that they can do. I see the work and the progress that they make. I see the openness and like being able to gain trust with a man specifically after being hurt by men. It's like, oh, that healed something in me. Like I needed this. So if anything, it's the reverse actually.
It's super beneficial too. I think that it's important to have gone through some stuff yourself and able to have that connection with other people and provide the service that you're providing. When you think of a therapist that has, and I'm sure there's some out there that have never gone through a hard day in their life trying to help people with what they're going through, it's like you don't have that connection.
Mm-mm.
Like what can you relate on? So having gone through some stuff yourself and having these conversations with people about what they're going through, I think it's super helpful because you guys can somewhat, and to maybe to some degree, not everything, but you can relate on, okay, I get the frustration because I've been there.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because a lot of that's like there's such a high rate of military members having a high ACEs score. So ACEs is an adverse childhood experiences. So it's like 10 questions and it's like basic things like when you were a kid, did you ever get like hit, sworn at, threatened, right? That's one of them. Another one is like, did your parent in your household ever experience depression, right? Because like moms with depression is a very high indicator of an ACEs score and the like fact that it'll probably impact you later in life. It asks like, did you ever feel like you weren't loved, right? These questions from like 18 and under. Military members have a very high ACEs score across the board. It's like
Mm.
childhood trauma is the one thing that's like, oh yeah, you guys can definitely relate to that, right? So for me, having a high ACEs score, I remember doing it when I was in grad school and being like, oh my God, what? I mean, having no awareness, right? Because like we don't
Yeah.
know these things. And then my veterans all do it, and I can see their ACEs score, and I immediately kind of categorize. I mean, I've
Mhm.
never had a veteran that's under like 4 or 5 out of 10.
Wow.
They usually always have like 4 at least every single time.
That's the thing is I feel like knowing too. I mean, like I'm curious when you go to like take on a client, do you got like your clients?
Yeah.
Do you kind of express to them like in to begin with, like, hey, I've been through some stuff myself. Like I know you gotta have that professional face, but it's like I feel like when you say, hey, I can kind of relate. I've been through some of these things myself. I feel like that helps bring that shield down.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're not wrong. In grad school, they taught us never to do that, by the way, when I was in.
Okay.
And that's what I mean. Like, I threw everything out the window because it wasn't
Yeah.
working. Because they tell you, like, obviously, I look young. So, like, if somebody
Mhm.
comes to session and they were like, Beth, like, if somebody came to session and was like, you look really young, your response should be, and it should be something along the lines of, like, are you concerned, like, I'm not going to be able to help you effectively because I look so young? Like, do you think I'm not
Mhm.
going to be able to relate to you? Which is a valid question. But with veterans, I'm like, "Oh, I'm 33. Are you worried I can't help you?" And I'll just say it, like, super factually, right? And they're, like,
Yeah.
really like, "Oh, what?" Because that's not what I was taught, and I realize, like, you guys value honesty and transparency
Yeah.
and, like, directness, and, like, if I give that to you, I usually get a return. So one of my, like, favorite clients, he's, like, 53. He came into session and was like, "Oh, no, I need somebody else." And, like, I don't get offended by it, right? And I was just like, "Let's talk about that. How old do you want?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "I don't know, like, probably, like, 27." I was like, "I'm 33. Like, do you think I can't help you because of that?" And he was like, "Absolutely." And I was like, "Okay, let's talk about it." And then I ended up telling him, "Why don't you just do the intake with me? Because no matter what, if I send you over to somebody else in my practice, then, like, your intake is done. You don't have to do this a second time. They can just read my notes." And he was like,
Mhm.
"Okay." By the end of the session, he was like, all right, we'll give it a try." And I've had him for a year and a half. He never left.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see. I think it's very unique. Like, obviously, you do look young, and then just prioritize like, hey, like I specialize in working with vets.
Yeah.
It's like to be honest with you, from the outside looking in, I see where that would come from. Like,
Yeah.
she's you're like she's supposed to know about all this vet stuff, but you do. That's very unique, and that's awesome. You
Yeah.
know.
It's definitely one of those things of, like, judging from the exterior, right? Like, I think a lot of people look at me and they're like, "Oh, like, they wouldn't know I grew up really poor." They don't know that, like, I needed, like, state assistance for most of my life in my childhood, that, like, we lived with the system, and my mom worked really hard to get to schooling, and we didn't go and, like, have stability until I was, like, 16 when she finished her degrees, right? Like, people wouldn't know that I grew up really rough.
Mhm.
And they wouldn't look at me and be like, "Oh, she struggled in life probably," because I look really, like, smiley and happy, right?
Yeah.
And I am, but, like, then I have to, like, humanize myself and be like, "Hey, I
Mhm.
know what you're talking about." So, like, all of that stuff they told us not to do in grad school. That's not gonna work with a veteran. They're not gonna trust you, they're not gonna respect you, they're not gonna open up to you. Like, men in general aren't gonna really wanna do that until they can humanize you a little bit. And so
Mhm.
I usually start my intakes off by telling them, "I know I look young. If it's a concern, you can let me know." I tell them, like, therapists are kinda like barbers. You're gonna take a couple of tries before you find one you really like, and that's
Mhm.
okay, and if I'm not a good fit for you, like, let me know. I don't want you to go without care. I'll find somebody else that's better. I've never had anybody leave.
Right.
But then I'll tell them also, like, "And I'm not your typical therapist," and immediately they're all like, "What?" And I'm like, "I do things very unorthodox, like, and I've never had anybody leave, but, like, I will be honest, you can ask me questions, I'll answer them, I'm not gonna flip them around on you and make it about you, like, you can ask me and I'll answer honestly, like, within reason." And they'll be like, "Oh, okay." And so, like, I use myself as, like, a lot of the learning lessons and sessions.
Mhm.
So, like, the relationship that I was in for 11 years, it ended 2 years ago. I use it as a form of, like, "Hey, this is why I know DBT works," and that's what I teach vets. And so it's this thought process of, like, going into the feeling instead of running from it. Because
Mhm.
if you go into it, then it's easier to face it and deal with it and cope, and then you work through it. And I'll use myself and I'll be like, "Hey, you remember my ex and he cheated?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Do you know what that feels like?" They're like, "Beth, you must be heartbroken." I was like, "I was 100%." And I'll tell them. And then they're like, "Oh, she's trusting me with her life." Like they're
Yeah.
telling me things about, and they'll do it in turn, right? And I realize like you guys need like this transparency and honesty in order to be vulnerable back.
Exactly. That's why I had asked that question too. Is like, I feel like once you kind of set that relationship down, like, hey, this has happened to me, and I'm going to talk to you about this too, because essentially it's going to help me, right? I get to talk about what I had went through, and
Yeah.
it's like you're just going back and forth. Like, okay, you shared something with me, now I feel comfortable. I'm going to share, is like we got that mutual understanding as far as just kind of like, well, you're in the limelight right now, and it's
Mhm.
all you. Like, so I like that. I think that's super beneficial.
Yeah, because like I mean, like I have a master's degree, right? To be a therapist, you
Hmm.
have to have a master's degree. So then I think people think of it as like I look this way, I look young, I have an education. So immediately I'm put into this category and I'm like, let me just put myself over here where like I
Yeah.
actually am and I'm kind of in the middle. And the moment I do that, they're like, oh, okay, and it gives them a step back. Like, and I think they need that. They need that like vulnerability to trust me. And so like I know straight off the bat, like I'm gonna be the one that has to start it, initiate it, and that's like me trusting. And then usually I've never had it not be reciprocated back yet. So it works really effectively.
Yeah. That's another thing is like I feel like with a lot of veterans it's kind of like, and I mean you could tell me if it is or not, it's kind of like you're digging. You're getting little pieces at a time, and then they start to fall in and they start sharing more and more and more, but you got to like pull it out of them.
Yeah, veterans are so interesting because you guys do specific body behavior that's so different than anybody else I worked with. Like you guys will guard yourselves almost in a sense.
Hmm.
So I usually will have them like come in and they're like this, their arms are crossed in front of them, and immediately I'm like, oh, okay, I know what this is.
Yeah.
Or like when I ask you questions, you guys will like shift back and like kind of look to the side, and there will be like a firmness. I'm like, oh, that's when that got to you. Okay, we got to talk about that one, right? I have a client, he's a Marine, and every time he comes into session, I finally told him recently, like, I always know when something's wrong. He's like, yeah, how do you know that, Beth? And I'm like, well, every time that you come to session, you pick up your coffee cup and you drink it when I say, hi, how are you? Because I always start the same way, like, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
He'll like pick up his coffee cup and then he'll look to the side. And every time he looks to the side, I know it's been a hard week. Like, because when it's not, and I'm like, hi, how are you? He's like, good, right? And like him
Yeah.
doing that is him guarding himself, like immediately
Hmm.
preemptively prepping, like, oh, this is going to be one of those. And he was like, damn it, right? And so then he was like trying not to do it the last time, and he was like, I did it again. Like he picked up his cup, and I'm like, yeah, you already did it.
Like she's good. She's picking up on everything. Dang it.
You just pick up on those little things.
Yeah, I have really good memory too. I think it's really
Hmm.
funny because I'll remember and recall like so many things, and I'll be like, "Didn't you say this like a couple months ago?" And they're like, "I did." But like you need to have that recall in order to like connect things, which a lot of things for vets, it's your childhood. Men,
Yeah.
it's usually your childhood, like time and time again. It usually goes back to your childhood like 95% of the time of for whatever is going on, whatever you're going through.
What are some things that you've heard as far as, we can touch on that a little bit, the childhoods, it's just overall, like not a good home life growing up from a young age? Is it, you think have you heard from them that that's kind of what turned them to join the military?
A lot of the times in dating men, and also because I've dated men who are veterans and active
Hmm.
duty, and I like have all of my clients, the solidified like bottom line is usually something about dads. Either you had an absent dad, you had a controlling, like authoritarian type dad where it's like he like ruled with an iron fist and there was no ability to do anything with it. Or they were really absent, right? One or the
Hmm.
other kind of like is very consistently a pattern that I see for veterans. Um, and because of that, it kind of is either you guys go down this path as teenagers, especially boys, of like rebellion. So you
Hmm.
either rebel and you get into trouble, and this is like your saving grace to join the military because it's like, oh, you were going down a bad path, or like you're looking for stability because like you're so uncertain of where you fit in the world, and this gives you that also. And then like leadership, if you have a good leadership, like that will really ground you into solidifying like your role in society as men, right? And if you didn't have a dad, leadership is kind of going to give you like a father figure a lot of the time as long as they're a healthy one. And so like it's almost like dads are a big thing that I see and like the impact in the homes like growing up. So either they're like so controlling or they're not present. And that's kind of where it always aligns. There's always outliers, right? Where of course like somebody had a really loving dad and they still joined. But for the most part it's not.
Yeah, I could see that too, just from what you said, thinking about, if somebody had kind of like an absent father, rocky childhood, and then you join the military, especially if you did it at a young age, and then you have those NCOs, your sergeants, your leadership, like you were saying, kind of like that father figure. Hey, I'm taking orders from this guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to put in good work for this guy. And then you get out and that's gone.
Yeah. And then you're having to find your role like all over again, right? I think it's why also like active duty really like Mustangs specifically because
Hmm.
it's like this like double layered dad, right? Of like, oh, they know what it's like to be us and they've grown up and shown us what we can also become. And it's like this very solidified, great mindset to have. You get out and that leadership's gone. Who
Yeah.
are you relying on? Who's guiding you now? Where are you going to be? And so then it's kind of like you're lost. So like multiple avenues of being lost. And then also with that, like when there's not a dad in the home, moms don't know how to raise men. And I say that with so
Mhm.
much love as a mom. I don't know your guys' role in society. The only reason I even have some awareness is because I work with men for a living. If I
Mhm.
didn't work with you, I would have no idea, like, oh, I need to raise my son to be like firm and to be like grounded and to be kind, but also to be like steadfast in like his own like values, right? Moms
Mhm.
don't know this. When you're like a single mom and you're working and you have kids, or if you have mental health problems, right? Or if you can't even be there for your kids because you're a single mom because your like husband left, right? So many aspects go into that. So then you're not facilitating like, let me create men, right? Like you don't know how to create a man when you're not a man. And
Yeah.
so like I think it just adds on to a layer of that too. And then if you have a permissive mom that was like, hey, there's no rules, there's no structure, there's no discipline, you're running amok. Like you're gonna go
Yeah.
down a dangerous path as a boy because that's like naturally what your role is, and that's why dads are important to guide you, right? And then you get to the
Mhm.
military, you find that, and then you leave, and you're like, who am I? Like I don't even understand. And then if you become a dad yourself, whole
Oh,
other story,
yeah.
right? You guys get married young, like I joke, and I'm like,
Yeah.
stop getting married. I know the barracks are bad, but please, like, stop getting married so young.
Oh yeah, so many stories with that. You show up to your unit at 18, you find someone, you're like, I want out of these barracks. Hey, you want to get married? A
Yeah.
court marriage.
I see that all the time, man. Like, we know people that have done that just to get out of there, just to get a house, because they
Yeah.
provide you with that stuff,
Yep.
right?
Dude,
Yeah.
PAH, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys get how there's so many perks to getting married. I joke and I'm like, if the military gave you guys perks to not get married, I think it would be a lot better. Like, I'm not, but instead they give you an incentive, like, hey, get married.
Yeah.
Yeah, here you go. Like, we're gonna help. You're gonna get benefits if you get married, even though you don't know who you're marrying and you don't know who you are. Your guys'
Right.
brains are developed, and hey, if you have kids, it'll
Hmm.
work out, it'll be fine, right? And it just
Yeah.
continues the cycle though, right? It's really difficult. But I joke
Yeah.
every time I see somebody get married, I'm like, oh gosh.
He's going down that path.
Yeah, like you make a joke of like you can't be like an E6 or E7 without a divorce, like it's ongoing. Like I'm like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember being into, and it was like some of the guys that it's just like this mutual thing. Hey, I found this girl and we agreed that we want out of the barracks, so we're just going to get married. I barely know her, but
I mean, it's like that, like it's the way that they say it's that canon event, right? Where like
hmm,
the younger enlisted are like, bro, I met this girl, and they're like, don't do it.
don't do it.
And there is a high divorce rate too. Like I joke,
Oh
but
yeah.
every single veteran I have has been divorced. Every single one.
Hmm.
I don't have a
Wow.
single that hasn't been.
Do you think a lot of that is because of kind of our whole conversation here being closed off?
Um,
I
I
know there's other factors too, but with the high rate with military personnel,
I think for veterans, it's a lot of unrealistic expectations.
hmm,
I don't even think it's the emotional side to it. I think it's literally an unawareness of women marrying into the military specifically, right? Because obviously, like, there's women military members, but majority are men. And these women are like, oh, this guy's gonna be able to soothe me and nurture me and validate me, and
hmm.
like, and I'm like, no, like that, they're not gonna be able to do that. I promise you, if that's what you're looking for, you're really going to struggle to find that successfully. Like it's going to go down really fast. And then the unawareness of like the culture, like, hey, they're going to be gone for months at a time sometimes.
Hmm.
You're going to have to fully do it on your own. You're going to have to be really disciplined. You're going to need the motivation. You're going to have to like lock in a lot of the times and like be the one handling it. And it's going to be isolating for you too. And then like they don't know that. So I think it's a lot
Yeah.
of unrealistic conversations and expectations for like why the divorce rate is so high. Not including like infidelity, right? Like we know about that.
Right. Yeah.
An added layer to that.
I remember when I was going into basic. I mean, you hear the stories just kind of from a different standpoint, but like guys going in and obviously their female partner, wife, girlfriend, whatever, they're not used to that.
Yeah.
And it sucks, but I remember going in and guys getting letters like from their
Jody and
girlfriends
your
or
dog.
yep.
Yeah.
They get the letters, and I remember a guy had got one like my first week, and I was in a relationship at the time too, so I was like worried about it. I was young, and this guy gets a letter, and I felt so bad for him. He opens it up, and his girlfriend's like, "Hey, just this time apart, you're gonna be gone for a while. I don't think I could do it anymore." And he was broken down. By all means, I get it. And, I remember myself being worried. I'm like, oh, Jesus. Like, I heard the stories, and now I saw it with my own eyes.
Yeah. Jody is like a very common one that we talk about in the military, like with all my veterans too, right? between that. And so like I think it's unrealistic expectations. And I think that there's also this like, oh my God, we're in love and we're young, right? Your brains aren't
Hmm.
developed. And then if you go to war and come back, you're a different person.
Yeah.
And they want that old version of you, and that version of you doesn't exist. Even going to basic, right? You guys go
Hmm.
through an experience and you come back and you're different. And they don't know that they want this old version of you that doesn't exist anymore. Like it's there, but it's not gonna like be in the forefront. And then they want to be like women naturally are emotional creatures. So like I
Hmm.
say if you want success, you need to be like very solidified as a woman and self-soothing yourself. Your partner is probably not going to be able to do that for you. And if you have that expectation, they're really going to struggle and it's going to go downhill really fast.
It's just like a result too of a lot of those experiences, I guess. I feel like with the military and I know a lot of first responders are this way too. It's like just like
Yeah.
that numbness feeling of you go through so much and you don't really expect anybody to be able to relate, so you just kind of shut down.
Hmm.
And you're like you were saying, you're not really that person you were before.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe it's a sense of like, oh, I don't want to feel like a burden to others.
Hmm.
I don't want them to kind of hear everything I'm going through and then worry about if I'm okay or not. So I'm just gonna leave it as is, not say anything, and just go through my day to
100%.
day.
It's like a self-protection feature that men
Yeah.
naturally do too. And like I tried, like I like to tell women who are marrying into veterans, like give them their space. They don't know how
Hmm.
to communicate in the military. And I like, if you want it very basic, like root down things, emotions are weaknesses, and you're not allowed to be weak in the military. If you're weak and somebody disrespects you, you're addressing that right now, right here, instantly, like it's on site. And you have to, otherwise, this is now attached to your name, and you're not going to allow that. So then they come home and they want like, oh, emotions, and I'm like, they don't know emotions. They can't do that. They're not capable of doing that. It's not really safe for them to do that. And then you want them to turn that like a light switch back on when they get home. They can't do
Hmm.
that. And like having that awareness and like giving that space, right? I mean, like let them decompress when they get home. Give them some space, let them breathe for a second, and then they'll come find you. They're not going to be able to nurture and soothe you. Like it's not going to work that way when they don't even know how to do that for themselves.
Yeah. If you had to give like advice, or I guess I was gonna ask, when it comes to helping veterans open up, or if you were to give like a military spouse or a vet spouse kind of some advice, like, hey, maybe take this angle, what would you tell them? Like, is it kind of giving them that time to open up, or just making sure they're comfortable? Like, what
Okay.
would be like your advice of getting them to potentially get that vet to open up?
And I would say probably just going up and giving them a hug to start. Men
Hmm.
are physical creatures. You guys need a release of dopamine and like oxytocin and to decrease your testosterone. So I would say like know your partner enough to read their body language and see what they need. Give them a hug and then just very gently be like, I'm here if you want to say it and leave it
Hmm.
alone. Don't question, right? Because a lot of times women go into like, why aren't you talking to me? Why aren't you telling me? And I want to know, and you're not. And it just kind of like fires.
Makes them closed off a little more.
Exactly. So I would say do the opposite and pull back away from it. Give it as an option and then remove yourself is what I would say, right? Like I don't go into my sessions and I'm like, hey, what is that? What is happening? Right? I'll be like, hey, I see something. What's happening right now? Very softly, and then I remove myself.
Okay.
95% of the time they're gonna come and meet me and be like, this is what's going on, Beth. Like, yeah, okay, you picked it up, right? And they need that space though. So men need like this distance instead, like the availability and then the
Hmm.
distance. And if I could give a recommendation to women, don't get on your phones. Please, please, dear God, stay off your phones when they're actually talking to you because the moment that a man opens up, you're going to get probably one opportunity to start. And if
Hmm.
they're talking, like, I had such a hard work day, and they go like this, and they're like, uh huh, immediately your brain shut down, or like, not doing this again.
Yeah, it's like they're not paying attention.
Yeah. So my best like advice would be like offer it very gently, give a hug and then remove yourself. And then when they do talk, make sure you are listening because you're not
Hmm.
going to probably get very many opportunities. But if you do it right the first time, your his brain goes like, "Oh, I can say it and she's listening to me." Okay.
Yeah.
And then you'll do it again, like, and you'll check in, right? And then through enough time of doing that, it will become like solidified. This is safe. And once your
Hmm.
brain says, "Oh, my partner's safe," it'll be so easy for them to communicate now you're gonna want to talk about it. Now you're gonna be like, babe, I had the worst day at work today. And they're like, what happened? Right. And then you guys are able to have this dialogue. So it has to start off very slowly and like very directly, like being aware and correlating that. And it's not to say, like, again, once you can do that, then as husbands, right, you guys are more likely to be like, oh, she's having a hard day. Hey, what's wrong? And she's going to talk to you about it. And now you're going to be like,
Right.
oh, okay. And it gives like this give and take, right? Of like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
there's this openness across the board.
So it's kind of like not, not getting to the point where you push them away. It's like, hey, I'm gonna make you feel comfortable. I'm gonna open up this avenue here. Just know, like, when you want to talk to me, it's here.
Yep.
Instead of trying to dig, and then kind of
Mm.
push away, and then you bring that shield up again, and you're like,
Yeah.
and then they're on their phone, and you're like, I knew it
Yeah.
was a waste of time.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like a very gentle, like opening and then a retreat is what I would say. And keep in mind, a lot of men are very avoidant about things. Like they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to address it. Like if they talk about it, then it exists. And women are naturally pretty anxious, right? It doesn't mean like it can't be switched, but that's the dynamic I see a lot is a lot of my veterans are avoidant and a lot of their partners are anxious. So when they're asking you those questions, it's because they're anxious. Like, is he mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Well, why does he not love me? And then their brains start to spiral
Yeah.
and then they start digging. And then you're like, no, I'm not mad. No, I'm not mad. No, I'm not mad at you, right? And then you're like, leave me alone. And then it escalates because
Yeah.
women aren't comprehending like, oh, I need to self-soothe. Oh, okay, I need to like be good in my own space. That way I can open up to this space, right? And men are the same way, like, oh, she's doing good over there. I need to work on this space and like allow her to come in. So it's kind of like a two-sided thing. But if my best advice would be like, give that openness, give a hug, hand them a beer, walk away.
Yeah.
Right? Like imagine you're having a hard
Yeah.
day and your wife walks in and she's like, oh, just goes to the fridge, opens a beer and is like, hey, I love you, gives you a kiss on the cheek. If you want to talk about it, you can, and goes and starts and does her own thing. You'd be like, what? What is this?
Yeah. I feel like it's better to do that because it makes them think about that. Like, oh, this person's here for me
Yeah.
or they love me instead of like they're just
Mhm.
trying to get it out of you. And it's like, oh, no, why do you want to know so bad? Like stuff like
Right?
that.
Defensiveness versus like, oh, this is safe. Because it
Yeah.
translates to safety, like, oh, okay, that's different. That's weird. Like one of the guys I dated who was active duty army. And I remember him and I like we had a very honest conversation and I was like, all right, tell me what's your conflict like? And people don't have these conversations. Like when you're upset, what do you do? And he's like, I want to be left alone. And I was like, yeah, I'd expect that. And he's like, what do you do? I was like, I run. I was like, I'm getting in my car and I'm going for a drive for an hour and you're not going to hear from me if I'm really pissed off. And he was like, what? And I was like, no, like I'm not fighting with you. Like I'm not engaging with you. Like I'm dipping out. Like I'm leaving. And I will never forget. He goes, I don't know how I feel about that. And I was like, what? And he was like, I don't know if I want you to run. Like, how do I know you're safe? And I was like, oh, like I would put my location on and be like, hey, this is where I'm going and I'll be back in an hour. And you could see where I'm at the whole time. And he was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, I could do that. And I was like, and you? And he's like, yeah, I'd probably just sit on the couch, put on a movie and ignore you. And I was like, cool. Yeah, I can do that.
Cool.
I'll do anything, right? Men and women process emotions so differently. Their languages are so differently. Like the way that they deal with things are like, it's almost polar opposite. So I would say, whatever is your natural state, do the opposite. You want to bitch at him instead, leave him alone. You want to go and comfort him, offer it and then leave him alone, right? Like, oh, you want to argue with him, just stay kind of quiet and withdraw and like be back into your own space. It's literally the opposite. And for men, it's the same. Oh, you want to avoid her, you should probably go talk to her. Okay, you want to get angry, okay, go underneath the anger and fill out what is that and then go and talk about it, right? So it's like almost the opposites because we operate completely differently across the board.
I feel like communication and just how important that is with your partner, with whoever,
Absolutely.
is establishing that communication. And I mean, I learned my lesson. I've had relationships in the past that have failed ultimately because of lack of communication, right? And it's like looking back now, a lot of lessons I learned from that is the value of just being upfront and direct and being like, hey, when I'm feeling this way, this is what I want. And when you're feeling that way, like I can't read your mind, but let me know, like, what is it you need?
Absolutely.
Right. And it's at the root is just talking, just speaking, right? Pull down the shield and just be like, hey, this is what I need and what you need. Let me know so I can help you to the best of my ability.
Yeah. And keep in mind, society doesn't teach men that. And the military sure as shit is not going to be like, hey, you need something? Oh, you want something? I don't care, right? Like, that's what they teach you. It doesn't matter what you want. That doesn't mean anything to us. But when you get into a relationship, like, you have to figure out how to do that. And so it's a whole learning lesson.
Yeah.
I tell my veterans who are dating, because there's, like, a group of them in their, like, late 20s to early 30s that are struggle. And I'm like, I need you to be open and communicate. And they're like, Beth, and I'm like, I know. But like, if you want successful relationships, you have to be able to talk about it. Like, it's not ever going to work. And they're like, all right, and they'll try. And I'm like, and if it doesn't work out, then great, that person's not for you, because they're going to have to have that understanding. And I tell them, when you start actually dating somebody, you're like 5 dates in, tell them you're a veteran. Give them some awareness. Let them be able to understand that you're going to operate differently, because you are. And like that capacity is just so different. And men communicating, it's not like being like vulnerable is an easy thing. I joke and I'm like, I'll say exactly what I think, how I feel. Like, you'll know how I feel about you when I'm dating you. But outside of that, like, I have no fear, because to me, it doesn't matter. But that's not a natural mindset to have, right? Like, I'm not fearful of just saying whatever is on my mind. Because to me, I'm like, okay, like I said it, I meant it. Like, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just saying, hey, this is who I am.
Yeah.
This is how I speak. This is what I think. This is me. And you like me or you don't. But I'm not going to beat around the bush and put a mask up.
And it makes it so easy, because I tell people it's really going to weed people out. Like, when you tell somebody who you are and you're like, hey, this is how I am, they're either going to be about it or they're not. And it's going to be very clear. And then you know how to operate from that place. You can move forward, or you can go be like, yeah, this isn't going to work. Right. Which is why, like, the conversations I had, like with the guy I dated in the Army, yeah, we had very honest conversations. I'm like, this is what conflict looks like for me. These are things that I struggle with. This is stuff that like I'm working through. Right. And he'd be like, okay, this is mine. But you have to be able to have that open dialogue, and people don't do that most of the time.
It is super beneficial to start off that way. I mean, like, you first start talking to somebody, you're like, hey, this is me. This is what I think about things, because now you're putting yourself in a position, and for them too, you're not wasting anybody's time.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? You're not going on several dates or hangouts or whatever you're doing with this mask up, and inside you're like, well, I know I'm this way. I don't know if they'll like me. Just be upfront, like, hey, this is me. This is what I have to offer.
I call it setting yourself up for success with my veterans. Like, set yourself up for success. Know what you're looking for. Know what your hard limits are. Know what it is that you need to communicate. Know yourself well enough to be able to communicate it, and give somebody the opportunity to be like, is that going to be able to be like something that I can see working out, or is it not going to be like at all? And solidify that like really early on. And then you're not wasting any time. You're not hurting anybody's feelings, right? You guys can see it very clearly, versus, well, maybe. And I'm like, no, you know who you are. You know what you're looking for. Just sit in that, own it. It'll be okay. Like, the right person will find you eventually. You'll know, like, oh, they don't mind that I'm like this. Cool. Oh, you don't care that I game when I get home from work for 2 hours? Cool. Okay. You're a gamer too? Fantastic. Now we can do that together, right? You want to find those conversations.
I feel like most men just default to just holding everything in, not expressing how they feel. And I think me and maybe Devin too, like, I think in the past, like, we've done that too. And I just feel like you don't realize how much better you feel when you start expressing how you feel, like, to somebody else. It makes you feel so much better. And sometimes you have this thing in your mind, like, oh, they're going to hate this, or they're going to be mad at this or something. And then once you say it, then it's a totally different outcome. And now the situation's better. Yeah. But communication, like, yes, it's key.
Yeah. I think it's kind of hard too, because, and people might not like this, and that's okay, because it is, I'll say what I say. But I think there's also a fear for men to be open and vulnerable, because it can be used against them, right? And a lot of women don't even have the awareness of being like, oh, okay, let me give them that space, because they immediately start judging, or they're like, oh, I don't like that aspect. And there's like a very much he said, she said in culture right now for society. There's not a whole lot of grace or kindness that's given, right? To be like, oh no, men are emotional, like, but they're not going to be emotional with you. They need to trust you. And then once they do, what are you going to do with that? And so then men hold back, because they're like, I don't want to like put this out there. I don't want to be at risk, right? And then women are like, they just don't care. So fine, then I don't care, right? And then they're just like, they're all the same, and they walk away from it, right? Instead of being like, if people just learn to communicate, it would fix so many things across the board that we're going through, like, as a society as a whole.
I feel like a lot of veterans as well, when it comes to relationships and stuff, it's like you share, if you do get to the point of being comfortable enough to share some of your experiences and feelings with somebody, say it was a long-term relationship, and you really open up to this person, and you give them a lot of pieces of you and things you've gone through, and then let's say that goes downhill. Now what are they doing with what you shared? Right? Who are they talking to, and what are they saying about you? And are you going to be, you never want to be like labeled this kind of guy because you were open, right? Like, oh my God, he's messed up because he shared this with me, and you're kind of stuck with that.
100%. And see, it goes back to like the thought process that you said earlier, where like we care so much about people around us, right?
Yeah.
And like my brain, like, and again, like I have such a weird brain, like, and I know that now, I don't care. Like, I literally don't care. Oh, okay, like you're talking about me. Cool. Okay, I said what I said, like I meant it. So like my cousin always jokes, and she's like, "You're embarrassing me," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm scared." I meant it. she's like, I have no idea why you like how you can do that. Like,
Yeah.
she's talking to this guy. Clear signs he likes her. She likes him. And I'm like, just say you like him. She's like, no, oh my God, I'm not saying that. And I'm like,
Like, what are you waiting for?
so there is like that fear, right? And I tell you guys,
Mhm.
I think the mindset that I go to is like normalize the fear. Like, yeah, I'm worried that somebody's gonna be out there judging me. Super normal, super natural. You're supposed to be afraid. And then go to, but if it's really my person, would they share that information?
Right.
If it doesn't work out, does it really matter because I let them see a part of me? Okay, they're just not the right person to hold that for me. I don't want somebody who's not going to be able to do that for me. If they use
Mhm.
that against me, oh, like, I don't want somebody who does that to me. Okay. And like change the way that you view it instead of it being like weakness. It's like, no, I like stood in my truth and instead it didn't work. Cool. See you later. There's the door. Like, I'll be fine. Right. And it's not like I don't care. It's like I know who I am. So it's like shifting the way that you feel about it instead of it being shame, being like, no, steadfast in that. Like I said that with my chest. Like I'll tell people like stand the F up. Say it with your chest. Be about it.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be fine. It'll be okay. It's not gonna feel great. But like
Mhm.
at least you did and you don't have to reside in what if. I feel like men especially reside in like, what if I hadn't done that? What if I didn't say that? What if I and that what if like eats you alive. And I'm like,
Yeah.
say it, it'll be okay.
I feel like a lot of veterans too, I don't know. I could be wrong on this, but I feel like a lot of them kind of, you go through something in the military super hard, super challenging, right? Something to be super prideful about
Yeah.
and take honor in. And it's like when you get out and you start dealing with whether it's relationship problems or other things, it's like your confidence kind of takes a hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of vets, if you realize like what you went through, I mean, that should be enough to build your confidence,
Yeah.
right? Like you were saying, like speak with your chest, like you
Sure.
went through some crazy stuff, right? Like essentially remember who you are and
Yeah.
remember what you did and have that pride and that confidence to, if you need to shut down a relationship, hey, that's fine. I went through some crazy stuff and this isn't going to be, like the downfall of me.
I had a client, and I mean, it's also a really interesting dynamic that I see, and I say it with like so much grace and kindness. But military members are protectors and providers naturally now. You guys are solidified into this role. You guys, men as a whole, are like I see them as protectors, providers, and somehow in the military, you guys attract a lot of people who unknowingly are takers. And it's like this dynamic that I see of like, well, they're coming home and they're cleaning. Then they're going back to work. And then, like, they get home from PT, right? 5 a.m. to go to PT, come home, they make
Yeah.
breakfast, they're cleaning. Then they leave, they come back at lunch, they're doing stuff. Then they're leaving and coming home, making dinner, right? And I don't know why it happens, but it's like a dynamic I hear time and time again. And so then they get divorced, they go into a second relationship, and it's usually a little bit better, but it's very similar dynamic again of like a lot of self-centeredness, a lot of selfishness is what I see. Don't know how. It's like they like are beacons that attract this like dynamic of like protectors and providers get people who are selfish and like very self-centered. Not always, obviously. And then I have to remind them, and I've said a couple times like, "Hey, what was your rank when you got out? I'm curious."
Mhm.
And they'll be like, "Ugh," and I'm like, let me hear it. And they're like, I was an E6 Beth. And I'm like, okay, say that again. They're like, I was an E6 ma'am. And I'm like, okay, all right, okay, just making sure. Um, your partner, when she's talking you to this way, when she's not wanting to help, when she doesn't want to contribute, what does that feel for you? What rank would she be? And they're like, dude, she's not even ranked. Right. And I'm like, there you go. Okay, so you know this. I'm like, so I'm gonna need you to stand the F up. You
Yeah.
know who you are. You worked how hard to get to where you are. You worked really hard to facilitate this relationship with your partner. Have the same expectations back. You can ask for those things. It's very fair. And they'll be like, all right, and I'm like, okay, good, right? They're like, oh, I'm gonna call her a recruit from now on for the week. And like it's an ongoing thing though, because I have to remind them, like, you know who you are. Like I know your identity got lost along the way, but who are you? Like you're worth more than this. That's what I remind them. It's the gentle way of being like, you're worth more than this. Like you can ask for things like and be willing to expect it back if you're giving that, especially. And do their wives like it? Probably not. I'll be honest. Their wives probably don't appreciate that. But I'm not seeing their wives as my clients, right? I'm seeing them and I'm like, this is
Yeah.
how I do it.
Just kind of helping them with that self-understanding and realizing again like who they are,
Yep.
putting them back in that position to kind of, hey, you went through a lot to get to where you are, and it's kind of not right for you to take all these hits you're taking. So just remember, hey, you were this rank and you went through this, and
Yeah.
you got to act like it.
I think it's one of those things too where it sounds terrible to say, but like women also are more prone to like following leadership also. Like there are roles societally, like protectors and providers are like, hey, you know who you are, you know what your role is in this relationship, I know what mine is, and like yeah, you can merge them, right? So like I work full time. So like if I was to get into a relationship, like yeah, I'm also working just like you are. But also like I want a husband who's gonna be like, yes, okay, like this is our plan of action. You can trust in me, you can rely on me. And in return, I'm gonna be like, hey, I'm the safety and softness. Come home. I got you, right? Like and that's a very powerful dynamic to have, but one person needs that. So a lot of my veterans for some reason kind of go into this role of they forget who they are, they get kind of soft, I think, after the firmness of the military, and then it doesn't go over well in relationships. And I'm like, stand up. I'm gonna need you to stand up, please. Like, I know you know who you are, and they're like, I forgot who I was, Beth. And I'm like, all right, you're working out again? Fantastic, let's go. Okay, you're
Yeah.
back into like, like combat sports, let's go. Okay, like you're building something, absolutely start investing into yourself, right? And then their wives actually seem to start to respect them more, if I'm totally
Yeah.
honest with you.
That's how it's nice to receive that information that way, right? Just being blunt with it, like straightforward, like, hey, you got to stand up, start taking ownership and action.
Yeah. And again, like it's not always that way, but like sometimes I do need to remind them because I also see my veterans so differently than their wives do. Where I'm like, I hear
Mm-hmm.
you're struggling. Like I see it on your face. Like, what is your purpose? What is your meaning? What is your driving force? Like you guys as men need to have like a purpose in life or you go downhill really fast. And then when you're going downhill, right, and you're not working because you're getting your benefits, right? What are you doing all day? What are you
Mm-hmm.
focused on? What's your growth? You guys need to push yourselves. Like the military pushed you all the time. How are you pushing yourselves? And if you're not pushing yourselves and your wives are watching you kind of go downhill, then they start to lose respect, right? And like that shouldn't happen, but that's the reality that I see as much as I dislike it. Like I genuinely see it a lot of the times. And instead of like women being able to be like uplifting and be like, hey, what do you need? How do I help you? It's like you just sat here all day, like you're that's all that you did. Like and then it goes into this like not like graceful perspective of like, oh, they're struggling, let me help. Instead it's just judgment. And
Yeah.
again, it goes into the dynamic of then you don't communicate. And then nobody knows
Right.
what the other one's doing and no one knows what anyone's feeling. And then it kind of goes downhill so fast.
Yeah, that's something I tried to when I got out. Obviously, military being super busy and you're constantly on the go. I mean, mentally and just physically taxed all the time.
Yeah.
And when I got out, I tried to mimic in a way of like replicating that into civilian life, just staying busy. Even to this day, when I like sit down, I'm not doing anything, it almost feels wrong.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
feels like there should be something out there that I'm doing,
Yeah.
so it's like taking those breaks in a way kind of feels wrong, but it's just because I try to replicate
Mhm.
that military experience in the everyday civilian life.
Yeah, because it's like I'm lazy. Like I'm
Yeah.
lazy. Like, oh, I'm procrastinating. Oh, like I wasn't doing stuff like I needed to do. So I have a client that will do that. He's like, he cannot leave anything dirty in his house. Like it's
Mhm.
instantly cleaned. And then I'll be like, what do you? He's like, I'll sit on the couch for like 2 minutes, and then I'll just be sitting there like, I need something.
Like I gotta find something to do. There's got to be something.
Yeah. And I normalize it. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what you're supposed to do because like you guys aren't supposed to be resting. Like they don't teach your
Mhm.
bodies to be like calm and regulated in that state. Like this is foreign to you. So instead, set a timer for 5 minutes and be like, all right, I'm gonna be lazy for 5 minutes and then I'm gonna get up. So like I give them like little like key ins
Yeah.
to be like, okay, be lazy just for a little bit and then you can get up and be like, well see, I wasn't that lazy, it was worth it. Okay.
Mhm.
And then kind of slowly do that instead. Because I see polar opposites. I either see complete regression into like being unproductive and spiraling really badly into depression and isolation or I see complete cover-ups and like constantly go 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 adrenaline
Mhm.
seeking and then not knowing and then you get burnt out and both end up in the same thing, a depressed state for men where they're just like, who am I, what am I doing, what's my purpose, what is
Mhm.
happening, like I don't know who I am, right? Either way they still get to the same goal.
So you think it's good to try to find like a middle ground as far as like, giving yourself that time to kind of reset, relax, but then staying busy, because I can see with, you know, you can go in either direction and then still kind of get to that point.
Yeah. It's like a healthy balancing system is what I'll say. And a lot of the times veterans are dopamine seeking. So you guys got dopamine constantly, like in very terrible ways when you were in the military. You guys
Mhm.
are getting it from caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, right? You're getting it from fighting. Fighting is
Mhm.
dopamine. Gambling is another one. Sleeping around, that's another one, right? Like so all of these sources of dopamine all the time. You get out and then your bodies are seeking that. So like now they're either going to go into, well, let me stay busy and I'll get dopamine. Like I'm going to have a purpose. Like I'm going to work. Right. And then it's not fulfilled because you're not getting healthy dopamine, because that's all pretty much unhealthy dopamine in the military. And then when you're depressed and you don't want to do anything, you're not getting any dopamine either there. So a lot of my vets, I start them off with, first thing you do waking up is go outside for 10 minutes in the sun. And they're like,
Mm.
what? And I'm like, yep, you heard me. Only thing you're doing this week, go outside for 10 minutes as soon as you wake up. And they're like, okay. I'm like, you can take your coffee out there. You can like work out while you're out there. You can do whatever it is you need to, but you're outside within 10 minutes of waking up. And the reason
Yeah.
for that is because your brain gets to have that sunlight. It translates into dopamine and will give you melatonin to fall asleep at the end of the day too. So your body needs that. So automatically the sun's giving you dopamine. Having a purpose and creating a task and completing that task is dopamine. So we start really small and then build up. So like if there was one advice, I'd be like, get up every single day and go outside for 10 minutes. You'll be amazed at what your body would do with that immediately.
Do you recommend a lot, to some of your clients, like some of those natural remedies or like even like better like sleep hygiene?
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, do this to get better sleep. I was doing that for a while too, kind of like the getting outside in the morning, kind of doing the grounding, what they called it, or like cold showers.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for stuff like that.
Yeah. Sleep hygiene is so big, but a lot of the times you guys don't sleep well, like at all.
Yeah.
Your bodies are
Yep. Yeah. I could tell you firsthand.
like, I found out most of my clients are sleeping like 4 hours, and I was like, what did you just say? I'm sorry. Like, I need you to tell me this again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a no wonder. And if I can get them to like 6 hours, I'm like solid. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
perfect. So we build up to like getting them to around 6 is like an aim a lot of the time. Um, and so like sleep hygiene is a big thing for sure. But I'm like, your bodies need to be tired. So if you're on the depressed side, you're not going to sleep well because your body's not getting any activity or movement to want to sleep. So you need to go outside. You need to do something. So I start building them like small tasks. Like, okay, now that you're aside for 10 minutes, go for a walk for 5, come back. It, like very small tasks. And then when you complete a task, your brain's like, oh, I did it. I can tell Beth I did it. And I'm like, fantastic. Dopamine, right? And they're like, oh, I did it. Okay. And then so like we slowly build up. And sleep hygiene, a lot of times, like I'll tell them, if you're ruminating on stuff, have like a journal next to you, put it down. When it comes up, normalize that it's there for a reason. Go back to your journal and be like, it's there. When you're like sleeping and you keep waking up, like normalize, okay, like my body is just used to not getting that much rest, right? So it's like going into things a lot of the time. And sound machines, game changer. Sleep apnea too. So many of you guys have sleep apnea, and I'm like, so unchecked. The moment they get and start wearing their CPAP machines, they're like, oh, I slept through the night, Beth. And I'm like, who would have known? No way.
Yeah, I found when it comes to sleep, this was more so a problem like when I first got out, transitioning from that high level of activity, constantly just being exhausted to where you could fall asleep anywhere,
Yeah.
to getting out to not exerting your body like that anymore. I'm like, man, I can't sleep. Like, I'm just not tired.
Yeah, your body hasn't used any of its resources to need to sleep, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm so used to being like, go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, cool, go work out. Go for a
Yeah.
walk, like do healthy dopamine, like that's healthy dopamine, like you'll get dopamine that way, and then your body's tired, you'll go to sleep, but you have to like move it, right? Because like some of my
Yeah.
clients, like one of my clients will come to session, I can tell like he hasn't been outside like in a day, and I'm like, go outside, and we'll do our sessions outside, and he's like, all right, right? And so
Nice.
like you can see it, so I'll make them kind of go outside and be like, you're getting sunlight right now, we're going to talk about this. And a lot of my women veterans actually do session while they're like cleaning, so I'll be like, hey,
Really?
yeah, because ADHD is so real for veterans too. Oh my gosh, the amount of ADHD I see hand in hand with veterans, like across the board, probably 90% of my clients have ADHD, where I'm like, oh, that's been unchecked. But the military keeps it in check because you have routines, expectations, standards, and so
Yeah.
it keeps it moderated. So I'll tell them, like, oh, the kitchen's dirty, put me up on the sink. And they'll do their dishes while we're having sessions, things like that instead, to give them some dopamine. They completed a task, they did therapy, they processed, and then they're done. They're like, oh, I did something today. I'm like, great, fantastic. Go take
Yeah.
the rest of the day off.
Gives you that feeling of like, you're checking the box, like, okay, hey, I took care of this. Now it kind of makes you a little bit more comfortable to kind of relax because it's like you did something now.
Exactly. There was some sort of production that happened, right? I was productive in some sort of way. And then the other thing is you guys immediately shame, I could have done more. Like,
Yeah.
so unforgiving. Your brain, like I joke, and I'm like, your brain is so mean. And they're like, it is. It really is.
It's like you did a little bit, but not enough. Find something else.
Yeah, that's not good enough. But that's not good enough, right? Because the military tells you that's not good enough, right? Embrace the
Yeah.
stuff. That's not good enough. And then your brains are just naturally in that state all the time.
Right. We've talked about it on this podcast before, just discussing the importance of like those natural remedies. And I like how you talked about that, going outside and getting some sunlight.
Hmm.
Like I told you, I was taking cold showers, and a lot of people overlook just getting some sunlight. I mean, I'm an advocate of the cold exposure, right? Cold showers, like kind of shocking that system a little bit, going on walks, getting in a workout, how just those natural things that are free can put you at such a better position mentally,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. The way I kind of see it is like think to our base instincts where we were like hunters and gatherers. Think of how successful that worked out for a reason. Go back to like what our natural states are supposed to be, which is like we're not supposed to be on electronics all day long. We're not supposed to be inside all day. You're not supposed to be sitting from 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Like our bodies aren't meant to do that. Our brains aren't supposed to be happy working that way. Go back to the base like things that you did. Go outside, go for a walk, like take a cold shower, right? Like all of these things are good. Ice is the best thing for vets with panic attacks, and nobody ever knows this, and I'm always shocked by it. I'm like, you have really bad anxiety or panic attack, ice is your best friend that you could ever have in the world. It will completely reset your sympathetic nervous system, and your brain needs that break. So a lot of the times I teach my vets mindfulness. So one of the things with DBT is mindfulness. It's like being present in the moment without any expectations, just being still, right? Like your brain will stop moving, and you have to teach your brain to stop thinking and moving. If you can do that successfully, you'll have like free dopamine all day long. But it's hard to teach somebody how to do that. So it's usually starts off with, are you aware of what you're feeling? Normalizing what you're feeling and then soothing it and then validating it and then letting it kind of be there and then going into mindfulness, because mindfulness is a very natural state for your brain. So like I'll tell them go outside and I'll have them do it. Like one of my vets, she was like spiraling. She was outside and I was like, hey, really fast. And she's like, yeah, I'm like, close your eyes. And she's like, what? I'm like, close your eyes. She's like, okay. And I was like, describe the wind to me, because I could see she's outside. It's like windy, right? And she was like, okay. And so I'm like, describe it to me like as if I'm there with you. She starts describing it, and you see her shoulders like slowly start to relax, and her voice gets slower. And then like she gets really quiet at the end, and I don't say a single word. She comes back a minute later, and she's like, "What the f did you just do to me?" I was like, "That's mindfulness." And she was like, "Holy crap! Like I don't think I can recall the last time my brain wasn't thinking." I was like, yeah, if you can learn how to do that skill and somebody can guide you, it's like game changer for sure.
I feel like it's because we're always on the go too. Like our minds are always racing, which is another reason why sometimes we have trouble sleeping. You're just constantly thinking, constantly thinking about stuff you shouldn't even be thinking about.
Yeah.
And it's like as many times, like when was the last time you could say you actually just stood there and like took in the moment? It's like you're always like thinking about something else, or oh, I gotta do this later, or did I take care of that? And it's like you're just like completely like unaware of what's going on around you. You're just moving.
I feel like that's why I hear a lot of people talk about meditation too, like why it's important just to shut your brain off for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard for somebody to learn meditation when their brain's going, right? Because unless somebody's going to teach you, like, oh, this is how you stop it. So, like, I teach people DBT for a reason, so I can teach your brain to stop thinking about something. Where I'll be like, in session, I'll be like, pick something up. So, like, I have this rock. I'll like, describe it to me. How heavy is it? And they'll be like, okay. And I'm like, what sound does it make? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? Like, put it next to your face, right? Describe it to me like I've never seen a rock in my life. They do that, and usually it's because they're spiraling about something, and I'll be like, hey, what's next to you? And they'll be like, what? I'm like, just whatever's next to you. And I'll do this with them, right? And then they'll stop, and I'll be like, hey, you know what you're thinking about right before this? They're like, yeah. I'm like, were you thinking about that? They were like, no. I'm like, cool. And they're like, what? And I was like, your brain can't do two things at once. It can only focus on one thing. So like when you're going to sleep and that's there, you go into the thought of like, oh, all those things I'm anxious about make sense. I have to go grocery shopping tomorrow. I need to do this. I have to work out. Oh, I have a podcast, whatever it is. That's like, oh, what questions do I ask? How's it going to go? All these fears. Go into it and be like, oh, okay, those things are really important to me. Cool. Yeah, that anxiousness is there for a reason. It's telling me, it's guiding me, it's reassuring me, it's telling me there are important things that are coming down my way, right? Go into it. And then once you're in it, then your brain kind of is like, oh, it already heard me. Like, I don't need to say it again. And I'm like, yeah, for sure. Because your brain needs to hear that. So like I always give the analogy of the plant. If you look at a little kid and you tell them, hey, don't touch that plant, what do kids go and do?
Touch the plant.
They're going to touch that freaking plant. That moment you said it. Were they going to do that before you said it? No. So every time you tell them don't do that, they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to do that. Same thing for
Yeah.
your brain with any emotion, anxiety, anything you're worried about. Hey, don't think about that. It's gonna be like, oh, so I need to focus on that. Cool, okay. And it's gonna go into it and feed into it over and over. And the more that you push it away, the more it's gonna come back to you. So I tell you guys, how about you just go to it and be like, oh, I'm anxious. Oh, okay, I'm worried about all of these things. That makes sense. And then you walk away from it and it comes up, you're like, oh no, yeah, like I heard that. Okay. And walk away from it. Your brain's gonna be like, this is boring. Okay, never mind. And right? Like think about it. How many times have you said that in your head? You're like, yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, fine. It's gonna leave you alone. So like literally I teach you guys, go into it instead. And then once
Mhm.
you can do that, your brain's gonna like slow it down, your body's gonna slow down, describe something, calm your brain, and then go into that moment and you have mindfulness and you'll find peace in it.
So just having that self understanding and realizing, hey, the emotions are here. I'm aware. I'm aware that I'm feeling this for a good reason. I get why.
Yeah.
And just being one with it essentially.
100%. No, that's the hard part. The hardest
Yeah.
part in all of this is you guys even being aware that you're feeling something. Because
Yeah.
how often do people know what they're feeling? They're like, "Oh, I'm pissed," and I'm like, "No, you're not. Like you are, but you're not." Right? So then I have to literally teach you guys, like, almost like kids, like, "Hey, what are you actually feeling? Like that's
Hmm.
not what you're feeling." And then once you're like, "Oh, there are other feelings there," then I go to in the moment when you're pissed off, are you feeling that? And they're like, no, I didn't even know that I was doing that in that moment. Okay, now we need to work on you figuring out that you're feeling it in the moment to be able to correct it, right? So then it's literally strategically teaching them these steps of like, first have the awareness, then know it's happening, then know how to change it into the awareness and nurture it instead, and then go to something. But it's like literally steps, and it takes months to do each of it, which is why it's a joke that the VA says you guys are supposed to be healed in 12 weeks. And I'm like, where? I'm teaching
Yeah.
them skills that they've never been taught in their entire lives, right? Like
Hmm.
that's not going to be a 12-week kind of a thing ever.
Yeah. It's funny that they put like a time limit on it, like that they would even
Yeah.
like who would come up with 12 weeks as being the amount that, hey, you're supposed to be good at this time. Like how do you even figure that out?
Yeah, it comes down to like a lot of like studies that were done, whereas CBT, which is like a really big one that like therapists use, it is effective, but it's not as effective that it's going to last for life. They have seen studies show that, oh, and within 12 weeks, like there's good progress and growth. But in order to maintain progress and growth, there needs to be a stability to it. And it takes a lot of
Right.
time and replication of it. And even my clients that I've had for 2 years, like they still need that help. I still am having
Hmm.
to remind them weekly, like, hey, remember what we talked about last week? That skill. And they're like, oh, I forgot about it, Beth. And I'm like, okay, let's go back to like the basics. And we go over it over and over and over again. But the VA literally tells us, hey, you guys have 12 weeks to figure this out. And I'm like, there's no way. It's not
Yeah.
possible.
Not to mention that everybody's different.
100%.
And everybody's experiences are different. So the fact that they're like 12 weeks is like, well, some people, I'm assuming it could be maybe a couple of weeks of just getting some stuff off their chest. They feel a lot better. And some people might need a year or for life, just talking about things to help them still feel like they're in that, mental clarity state.
Yeah. I mean, like I tell people, I'm a therapist. I do therapy on myself all day, every day. And it still is hard for me to do it. And you want somebody who doesn't even know the things that I know or how to use those skills to be and to, like implement them like immediately and then be like, oh, you're good from now on. Like that's never going to work. And again, it goes
Right.
back to childhood. Learning these skills are things that our parents were supposed to teach us. And it's like a
Hmm.
very like disappointing thought process to realize like, oh, when I was a kid, you're telling me my mom was supposed to tell me like, hey, you're allowed to be sad and upset about something and soothe you and nurture you so your nervous system is regulated. So then you can go on with your day and it doesn't eat you alive. But nobody's parents really did that for them. And I'm having to teach you almost like your kids how to do that because nobody ever taught you that. And then the military doesn't facilitate that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to need you not to talk about that as a matter of fact.
And I guess that's a super challenging thing. I mean, obviously you would know more than me with your job is just figuring out like who's going to need more, right? Like some people are going to need less, some people are going to need more. And kind of, I could only imagine how difficult it is, like how to demonstrate, like, okay, this is what this person needs, or this person might need a little less, or this person might need a little more, and just kind of sticking with that to see what, because my fear would be like pushing somebody away, like I'm doing too much or I'm doing too little.
Yeah.
So to try to figure out how to regulate it and
Yeah.
figure out what everybody needs individually, I'm sure it's super challenging.
Um, they're all very similar across the board. A lot of it's emotional regulation. So it always goes
Mhm.
back to awareness. Then it goes to regulating it, like soothing, nurturing it. And then it goes into the skills. And then it goes the hardest part. After figuring out what's happening, the hardest part is shifting the lens. So, like I say that all the time on TikTok, like you have to learn how to shift the lens on where
Mhm.
you take something that's terrible or that's like uncomfortable and you find a positive shift in it, right? And it's not toxic positivity because I don't believe in that, but it's looking at it from a different lens. That is the hardest part because everybody gets to that point and everybody struggles in their own way. And that's the one where I don't know how long it's going to take for them to get it or not get it or forget it and come back to it. That's the one that is like the hardest. Once you guys kind of have the awareness, that's like kind of solidified. It's getting to that point of like knowing how to shift it. That is like all over the place for every veteran that I have. None of them are ever consistent in that thought process.
When you had started doing this work with veterans, I know your TikTok, you have a pretty big following on TikTok. Did you have your page before
No,
or was it kind of after?
after, yeah.
After?
Yeah, I didn't think TikTok would do anything. It was like,
Yeah.
oh,
I
no,
feel like that's a common thing. A lot of people, they're like, it just took off.
no one's gonna see this. No one's gonna care. Like I'm just a girl talking. Like nobody's gonna care about my voice or what I say. And I started TikTok because of a veteran. So I had an Air Force veteran, and he had a lot of trauma growing up in his childhood, and he did like SEER training. Right, he was a combat vet, and so he definitely heard things differently. He was kind of struggling a lot, and then I started to notice he was doing so well. And I'll never forget because I had to come back and bring it up to him. We had a session, and he like had communicated with his girlfriend about like her behavior really bothering him, and like he said it so kindly, and we had practiced it the week before, right, where he was like, hey, I know that like you feel like you're bothered to me and you're not, and I'm trying to be like very like communicative with you, but like I can't answer my phone and be on it all day long at work. Like I do care about you. And he like communicated it so great. And then he was like working out again, and like I could see this progress, and he like was smiling in sessions again. And I told him, hey, at the end of it, I was like, I'm so proud of you. Like you're doing so good. And he was like I had just slapped him. And I remember like, what just happened? And he was like, and he's like, shifty, he's like, I gotta go, Beth. See you next week. And like ended our session. And I sat there like, what the hell just happened right now? And it was so like bizarre to me. I was like, I need to understand this. So of course, like I told you guys, like I just say it, elephant in the room. Like I'm just gonna ask people whatever it is. I don't care if I embarrass myself. So we came to session, and I was like, okay, I need to know what that was about. And he was like, what? And I was like, you know what? Last week you just like hung up. Why? And he got like really uncomfortable. And I was like, do you not want to tell me? And he's like, I don't, because it's like embarrassing. And I was like, do you think I'm going to judge you? Right. And unconditional positive regard is a therapy thing. So it's basically the idea of you're always accepted by me. Like you're always safe with me. I'm never going to change my lens and my view of you. Like I'm here to support you. And he was like, no, he's like, just having to say it aloud. And I was like, well, when you're ready. And he goes, I've never heard kindness like that before in my life. And I was like, I'm sorry, what did you just say? And he's like, I've never heard somebody speak to me like that. And I was like, your mom? And he was like, no, not my mom. And I'm like, but you've been married, like your ex-wife? And he was like, nope, like I've never heard her say that. And I was like, your girlfriend right now? And he's like, no. And it broke my heart, like genuinely. I'll never forget, like, okay, let me keep it together. And I didn't show him. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, I hope you know, like I meant it. And I did. And I am proud of you. Can you see all the progress that you made? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, let's go look at your old like files, right? So I pulled up old notes where he was struggling like to communicate. He was struggling to work out. Like he was not. And he was like, yeah, I have been doing pretty good. Okay, right. And then we just went on with our session. And I ended that session and I just cried. I was like devastated, like as a mom, as a woman in society, like as somebody who had been in a relationship, realizing you're telling me that men are walking around never hearing kindness once. Like they never hear anything nurturing, anything soothing, anything to like uplift. Like, and then I started to just wonder, like, do people not hear these things like at all? Like, and I'd say it to my son, like my son hears it every like, I'm so proud of you. Like, great job. Like you're doing amazing, right? My kid's walking around like, thanks, mom. Um, and then I realized, like, I don't know if this is like a thing. Like, are men not hearing this? Like, genuinely. So then I went to my next session and I asked my client, and I was like, hey, when's the last time somebody said they were proud of you? And he's like, I don't think ever, Beth. And I was like, what? And then I kept going through the list, every single man. And then I asked my female clients, like, hey, when's the last time somebody said they're proud of me? Oh, she's like, oh, my mom did like just the other day. And I was like, oh, okay. I go to my next one and she's like, oh, my husband said it to me. And I'm like, okay, even your husband's saying it to you, right? And I'm like, there's a disconnect. Like something's not right. So then I was like, let me just put it out there. So then I wanted my page to be just solely about veterans. And then I realized like hearing kindness does wonders to people. And then when I shift it, right, one of the healthiest dopamines beside like sunlight is positivity, gratitude. If you can find one thing to be grateful in your day, you're getting one of the biggest hits of dopamine because your brain starts to search for it. It's actively has this question of like, what's good about my day? So during the day, you're like, what was good in that moment? Was there something good there? And you start looking for it and your brain starts to find it. So then I was like, let me include that in it. So then I started to be like, maybe men need to hear kindness. And so then it's when I started
Mhm.
doing like, hey, I'm proud of you. And then it went to like, tell me something good about your day. And I love when people leave the comments. Like you'll see me,
Hmm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I love that so much, right? Because they're actually now then think about it. Men are out there in the world like, oh, I wonder if Beth is going to ask what was good about my day. I can find something in it. Or you'll sit there and be like, what could I tell her was good about? And then you're thinking of your day, but you're looking at it from a lens of like, what was positive, what was good, and it
Right.
changes your brain's chemicals. Like
Mhm.
literally, it shifts the way that you view the world. And then it just kind of took off to this. And I don't even think I was
Yeah.
following. I'm like, I don't think this.
It's got to be like, I mean, honestly, with TikTok or any social media,
Mhm.
I think it's just rare to see just positivity on there. And then that's why your page, like just looking at it and seeing how many videos you have just saying I'm proud of you, like I hope you know that. Like, I mean, yeah, that'll make somebody's day because most of social media or anything in anybody's life, like there's a lot of negativity. And
Mhm.
just that one positive part of their day can just, change the rest of their
Hmm.
day for better.
It's so genuine too. I think one time how I came across your page, I was scrolling through TikTok and I came across it and I saw that like, hey, I'm proud of you. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, let me watch this for a second.
Yeah.
Like, wait a second, what was that? What did she just say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that often. Or the other thing is like, and people don't know this obviously, like I'm saying it now, but I will go onto my page late at night and my like For You page is very negative.
Mm.
But I've kind of purposefully made it that way where I'll see where people are struggling. Like I see the gym videos of the gym bros that are cooked and they're like in those comments like going downhill, you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
like it's like somebody working out in the voicemail of a girl being like, "You're not lovable," and I'm like, "What?"
Yeah. I know what
Yeah.
you're talking about. The
Yes.
edits. They kind of romanticize it
Yeah,
in a way. It's like
right.
gym fuel.
And then there'll be one of like where it's like, he's not here anymore or something like that, right? And I take it seriously when I see these videos, and I'm like, and I'll go into all those comments and I'll be leaving comments like, "Hey, I'm happy you're still here." Like, "Hey, your life has meaning. What was good about it?" Like, I'll go into people's comments that are really down,
Hmm.
and I'll leave it there. And then most of the time, they end up coming back to my page, seeing what I'm doing, and they're like, "What the hell?" And then like they'll end up following me too. So I'm like, you probably need to hear some kindness in your day. You probably need to hear that your like life has meaning, you're worth something, right? Because like, how
Hmm.
often do men hear that? How often do younger men in their 20s hear that where they're like struggling? How often have you been cheated on, right? Like cheating and like being treated and being vulnerable, and then this girl cheats on you, right? And I'm sure women need it also, but we have like I view it so differently. I've been cheated on, and I could call any of my girlfriends and be like, "This guy did this," and they're like, "Oh my god!" And I have immediate support. How many guys are doing that with their friends?
Yeah.
They're usually not. They're gonna go work it out instead and just like isolate it, reside in that. And then I also know like kind of like that red pill like view right now that's going around of like, oh, like hate on women or like women are this or women are that. And I'm
Hmm.
like, if I can give them some softness instead, if I can shift their lens to being like not all women are like that or like there is kindness out there, I think that they would start to look for that instead of just like labeling everything, right? Women and men just
Right.
label like across the board. If we can shift it a little bit, why would I not do that? And I look at it
Hmm.
too, like my son. I don't want my son to grow up and to be in a society where women are like, men are trash. That guy's trash, right? Like all of them are trash. Like, no, I want to be like, no, like I've built my son up. Like I've built other men. If I can do that one at a time, I'll do that. That's fine. I used to say, if I could just help one person feel less sad in the day, that's all that matters. When I started TikTok and I was getting like 20 likes, I'm like, I don't care, cool. Like that means
Yeah.
people heard this. And now I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, okay, like people are actually hearing this, and that's a little awkward sometimes.
Well, that's awesome, and I know definitely a lot of people out there are appreciating what you do, and I think it's needed. It's needed, and it's very unique what you have going on. And I'm seeing nothing but positivity from it.
Yeah. I mean, there's always some people that are a little bit uncomfortable, but I just kind of ignore it. And I've learned that too, like with men. Like when I feed into somebody's comments that's showing me like, oh, they were proud of something, they're like it's something in their day, and I comment
Hmm.
back, and then somebody who's being like inappropriate doesn't get a reply, they're like, oh, and then the next video, half the time they'll be like, this is good in my day, and I'm like, oh, great job. So it's just like behavior without them ever knowing it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing that intentionally sometimes. Like I'll ignore people if it's uncomfortable for a reason.
Yeah. If there's like veterans out there that are still in that point of being afraid or hesitant to reach out and speak to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there any advice you could give if there's a veteran that's listening to this right now and is hesitant about reaching out and they might need it?
Yeah, I would say that statistic of 22 a day, I know that it weighs heavy on you. I know that you guys are aware of it. And your brothers are still here and your sisters are. And they're the ones who also end up missing you. And that's the hard part too. And I know that that's like a selfish way to view it, but you're worth so much more than that. You overcame so much. You can overcome this too. And if you're afraid of asking for help, you don't have to tell anybody. I think that's the funny part about it. You don't need to tell anybody that you're getting help. You could just go and do it. Your buddies aren't going to know if you're a veteran. Nobody knows unless you tell them that you're actually seeking mental health help. Nobody knows. Nobody can judge you. Nobody's going to see this, right? Like, that's just for you to know. You don't have to share it. It's not a weakness. This is you facilitating like growth for your own family, right? A lot of you guys are dads or you have siblings or whatever it is. You're setting your family up for success by handling your own mental health. It doesn't get viewed that way, but you're literally creating like generational wealth in the terms of emotional things. If you're able to do this, you're going to become a better dad. You're a better partner. You're a better brother. You're a better sibling, right? Like across the board. You guys are doing this. Think of it less of a shameful thing as it is like this is something that's going to facilitate growth for your family, your protectors and providers. This is part of that. Be a protector and provider by like literally doing this for your family instead. You're setting them up for success. So a lot of the times you guys see it that way, right? Like it's not about me, it's about my brothers and sisters. Then make it that way. Set everybody else up for success with that same thought process. You can do that. And also, it's okay to struggle. Nobody tells you that. You guys are set up for failure, if I'm totally honest, when you get out of the military. Nobody set you up for success. They did not give you guys the tools to do it, and you're not going to assimilate back into society. People don't tell you that either. You're not going to because you're not meant to because you can't. That doesn't make you a failure. You're literally not supposed to do it. It's like taking a wild animal, putting it into captivity, and then taking it out of captivity and putting it back into the wild and be like, hey, go be successful. You're not going to be able to. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're not a failure. That's extremely normal. People just don't talk about it. Set yourself up for success. Be that protector and provider that I know you can be.
Where can people find you?
I guess you could find me from, what is it, Butterflies from Beth now? It used to be Hi from the Smiling Girl, and then I changed it. It was that from the very beginning. And then, I don't know, like a month ago, I changed it because I was like, I feel like people weren't humanizing me. And I think it sets an unhealthy expectation and standard for other women and relationships with people to be like, oh, well, she's always smiling. And I'm like, I'm not always smiling. And like, I'm a human too. And like, yeah, I like to smile. But like when somebody's like, smile, like stop being upset. And I'm like, no, like, it's sad sometimes, right? But because I created this entire account around me smiling all the time, which I think I still smile even when I'm sad in my videos. I was like, let me just humanize myself. And like, I'm just Beth. So then I literally was like, I always leave butterflies on everybody's comments. Like, that's the thing that I've always done. And so then I was like, okay, I'll just change it. So it's Butterflies from Beth now instead.
Awesome, Beth. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great conversation we just had with Beth. Honestly, I learned a lot from her, how important like communication is in all aspects.
Yeah, communication, trust, and obviously I took a lot of information away just being a veteran myself, understanding why a lot of vets have problems reaching out, right, talking with what they're struggling with. But yeah, she has a lot of good information. If there's anybody out there that's a veteran struggling with, PTSD, anything that you're going through, just kind of struggling to get acclimated to civilian culture and feeling like you don't fit in, I think Beth provided a lot of good insight, a lot of good information. Both of us took a lot of good stuff away from this. So overall, it was a really good conversation. Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. Devin, I'm going to try this out one last time. I know I say it every time, but we haven't bought new ones. Have fun. Why don't you try it?
They don't work.
Dude.
No way.
It's back.
No way.
It is. Think about this. It's been sitting there closed for a long time.
Yeah, so they're dead. It's dead, dude. There's a little something, but...
A little something.
That's it.
What did I say last time? A little flavor.
Well, I don't know why you would think it's flavor.
I don't know. I was just joking around.
But they do not work.
All right, well, thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace out.